All right. Yay. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Jack. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And all you viewers out there, nice to know that you're there. I'm Jack, and this is Talk Openly. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. It's a little reprieve from a hectic day.
Yeah, madness abounds.
Same for you?
Oh yeah. You know what it made me think of? It's been wild and woolly around here, but it made me think of a saying that I saw on one of our Sangha members' Facebook page. The saying is it's a quote from Trungpa Rinpoche, and it says, "Chaos is good news."
Mm,
Right? Because
yeah,
you get these
yeah,
confusing, chaotic situations, and there's this potential for developing some intelligence, right? Some
it
awareness.
really is. Yeah,
Yeah, so
it
we
really
can be
is.
grateful for the chaos in our lives, Jack.
There you go. All right. Yeah, that's like in Lojong. Lojong, I do some Lojong practice, and one of my favorites is to just apply everything that happens in your life. Just apply the Dharma. Meditate on whatever happens unexpectedly, I think.
Yeah.
Or meet everything with meditation. And I need that because oftentimes I'm really in that avoidant, state where it's like, no, I just want to reject it.
Oh,
No, I don't
oh,
want any of that.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. Well, we've got a good show tonight. We're going to be talking about some important and interlinked topics of, joyful effort and working with resistance.
Yeah,
And
AKA persistence and resistance.
persistence and resistance. Yes. But first, I'd love to, check in with you. It sounds like there's a little bit of chaos, but you also had a special weekend, and I'd love to hear a little bit about that. You want to tell us?
I actually have two things that were quite interesting from this weekend. I think that I'll start with the second one first, which was that I took refuge on Sunday. Yes, yes. I've been resisting taking refuge for many years actually now, and finally I was able to make that dive, and yeah, fantastic. I think the way that I was thinking about it in sort of in relation to the topic for tonight, and our Lama oftentimes talks about resistance being like the diving board. That's what allows you to leap. And the way that I've been feeling since Sunday is like I'm up in the air. Like it's all right. I'm off the diving board now, and I'm like, whoa! So I've got like momentum, and it's like exciting and stuff. I know I'm gonna hit the water soon, at some point. Like, it's part of the whole thing. But yeah, it's a really amazing sort of energy. I don't know how to explain it really for myself. It's this, it's palpable.
Yeah.
Like the shift is palpable. I asked you last time whether or not you thought it was true that that we get infected, so to speak, with Buddha Dharma when we take refuge, and I think so.
Yeah.
I think there is something to, I don't know, man. Maybe it's all up here. That's fine. That's fine, right? But man, something very, very special, and I'm super happy. I was like, there was there was the ceremony itself, and then afterward, like the community, right? Like I really felt so embraced by the song. I oftentimes do, but that day especially, it was just gorgeous. And now I got, some people gave me some things to put on my altar, so my altar is packed.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was really cool. But I also have something else that I thought was really quite neat. So our last show, we talked to Judy Taylor about adventures in shamanism.
Excellent conversation. Yeah.
It was so good. It was so good. And then what happened was, like I said, there's been this resistance to taking refuge for a variety of reasons. And on Saturday, I was all by myself at home, I had this, like this tightness. There was something going on, right?
Yeah.
Like I could feel like it wasn't quite anxiety. It was just something. There was some kind of a weird, energetic feeling, And I sort of like, I didn't know what to do. I was just like, what am I gonna do with this? And all of a sudden I remembered, maybe some drumming, some shamanic drumming. So
Hmm.
I had this wild experience I got to tell you about. So I grab my headphones and I just go to YouTube and I go type in shamanic drumming. I think it was like the first or second video, 32 minutes long, right? And I was
Mhm.
like, this is perfect. So I put my headphones on, I get and sit in my meditation posture where I normally do my meditation. And I just like relaxed a little bit and then I hit play and the drums start. And I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna listen, I'm just gonna listen to this, and like
Hmm.
really like almost like meditate on the drums, right? Really give into the drums. So I was doing that, and about like 2 minutes in, all of a sudden, without a lot of emotional, there wasn't a lot, no thought or emotional state really connected with it. About 2 minutes in, tears just started pouring down, right? I mean, it was just like pouring, like a water faucet, right? Snot and tears and everything. I mean, it was wild, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, all right, what's going on here?" Like, I like there weren't like normally if I was like crying or something, there'd be something really associated with it, something strong. In this case, maybe if I could say anything was associated with it, was just sort of this sense of the suffering and some sorrow. Like there's maybe just a tinge of that as a thought, but it was wild. I mean, it was just like coming out. I don't. It's not normal for me, right? It's
Yeah.
really strange. And so then, and then the other weird thing was then like so like it started, all this stuff's going on, and I'm like, okay, whatever, just keep listening to the drums. That's all, that's all you're doing here is just listening to the drums. So I kept listening to the drums, and like maybe like 4 or 5 minutes later, the drumming stopped and just went silent.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, that's weird. Okay, I guess maybe this is part of it. So I sat there for a while, and the drumming never started again. So I was like, okay. And now at this point, everything's dried up. I'm right back, just like I am right now. There's nothing going on. No tears, no snot, no nothing. I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. I wonder why they stopped drumming. And I looked down. It's because it was over.
Yeah.
It had played all the way through, all 32 minutes. So
Wow.
it had gone into like a trance state or something like that. It was just wild. But the neat thing about it, the neat thing about it was that there was this like that was just this incredible energetic release. There was this movement, and it just like I felt so relieved afterward. Like like you do after a good cry out, right? Like
Sure, sure.
it was like I just felt so just like, oh, so good. I sent Judy a message. I was just like, wow, that was amazing, and thank you. Like that was really helpful, and I think it really I think it was good preparation for the next day. Like I felt very I wasn't sort of in a heightened, sort of aroused emotional state.
Right.
So I was able to really be present and like pay attention and hear what was being said, and go through everything without a lot of other stuff going on. And so yeah, really helpful, really weird, and loved it. I thought it was great.
That is fantastic. Wow. It seems like, there was some awareness that, maybe it was a time that you needed to go a little bit deeper as somehow, like, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this drumming thing. And then whatever needed to be released was just right there. It was just ready.
Yeah,
It was ready for you.
yeah,
And
amazing,
for the
and how
drum.
it could
Yeah.
trigger it. Like
Yeah.
how does drumming do that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. And it's in every culture, Um, yeah, I mean, I can remember times that I've been at loud shows, or like really heavy, like kind of bass music. And there's something that it's that
Yeah.
kind of like subconscious level that just, yeah, it gets you.
Mm.
Um, that's so cool, Daniel. Wow.
Yeah, it was so cool. I loved it. I mean, like it was so weird too, because we had just, I guess it's not weird, it makes perfect sense. We had just talked to her about it. And it was just so happened. I was like, yeah, I was just, I don't have anything else to say about it. It was just
Yeah.
fantastic. I highly recommend it. If you ever find yourself in a sort of a place where you're like, oh, I need something to help with this energy, this something's going on.
Yeah.
Instead of reaching for something that might not be as beneficial, a little drumming doesn't hurt.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I might need that tonight. I feel like well, for one, in a the refuge ceremony was fantastic. I feel so inspired whenever I see people take refuge. And I love that practice, that sadhana practice of the refuge practice of Shakyamuni Buddha. And there's something about it, like, right, I get right there whenever I visualize my father and my mother, and then it's like everyone's there with me. And it's so interesting how that immediately kind of triggers that. So I've been feeling some reverb from that for sure. But yeah, I just feel a little bit like shaken up today. I think, you know, for whatever reason that just kind of happens, and feeling a little bit insecure at my job. Like, I'm just not quite sure if I'm like the right fit. Like, I feel like I'm doing good work, but at the same time, like I feel like someone could be doing a better job. And what I'm talking about is that I work as a peer counselor on a psychiatric unit. And so a peer is someone with lived experience with mental illness or substance use. But I haven't had to do like involuntary treatment. And that's a lot of the people who I'm working with. And so sometimes I feel like it's a little bit inauthentic. You know what I mean? Where I feel
No,
like,
I don't. Talk
no,
about it. No.
so, well, I just feel like because there's in some ways that I don't have that same type of experience of like involuntary treatment.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that there's some way that like I'm not able to connect as I think some other folks might be able to. And so that's just, you know, when I first started the job, I was feeling a little bit like, oh shoot, should I have not gotten into this?
Yeah.
But now I think I have a little bit more of like a kinder, gentler perspective for myself, where it's like, no, you're doing a good job. You really are doing good work. And there's a lot of ways that my experience does resonate with people. And at the same time, maybe it's not the best fit, and that's okay, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think it's just one of those like stages of life where it's like, okay, you know, what do I want to do now? Because like I am very often thinking about, you know, my precepts and the Dharma. And, you know, if I'm doing something where it feels like sometimes I'm being inauthentic, or that maybe someone sees me in a way that's not totally true or whatever, maybe they think that I've been in substance use treatment or something, then that just feels a little bit off for me in terms of like my precepts, and like right livelihood and whatnot. And it could be that I'm being really hard on myself, you know, because I tend to do that.
You are.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I just imagine that at some point within like maybe the near future, I might want to shift to either a different position there or a different job, different location. So yeah, that's felt a little bit heavy today, but also good because again, it's like this moment where I can practice and kind of investigate like, okay, yeah, here are like my precepts, and here is the, you know, Dharma that I'm trying to work on. So like, where is this vibing, or where is this aligning or misaligning or whatnot? And so that feels good. It's just like, okay, if I can see it as practice and training, then I don't kind of get in the doom spiral.
Yeah. Is it, I'm curious though. I mean, like, so your own personal job satisfaction and whatever you do with that makes, you know, you should whatever you think is right there. But I'm just curious, did I hear you correctly that some of the concern is lack of authenticity because you haven't been in an involuntary treatment program, and that somehow feels at odds with your precepts?
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. Just because, like, you know, maybe people think of me in a certain way, that maybe they'll read me in a certain way that
every
like,
single human being that's ever witnessed you has done that to you. What's different?
That's true. That is true. Yeah. No, That's
You
so
know, and that's also, you know, I kind of imagine, I don't know anything about your work or what it might be like, you know, so I'm just talking out of my, whatever. Anyway, so I'm just curious, like, are you not allowed to just say, hey, I've never been involuntarily, you know, I've never gone into involuntary treatment, and I just want you to know that, and let's move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I could, and there are people who, like, if they ask, I'll share that.
Yeah.
But there's times where I felt really uncomfortable, and I think that's where it's like, it's it becomes a thing about reputation and how other people see me, and like,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it's all, you know, fodder for a Dharma thought and getting into it.
I love it. I love how you're applying it, you know, very conscientious. It seems like maybe, I wonder, I'm just curious, do you think that maybe because you don't have that shared common ground, that real sort of like healing sort of connection and communication can't really happen because you don't share that particular common ground?
No, no, not necessarily, no. I feel like there's been a lot of healing. So that's the thing, is that, I know that I'm hard on myself, and that I'm doing good work. But yeah, it's like, this is where I think, the rubber meets the road, right? Is where, like, it's these moments where I feel really uncomfortable and really uncertain and vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the real Dharma, is
Yeah.
like, okay, what do I do then? And because really, I value honesty and transparency so much. And if anything ever feels off in that area, I'm just so uncomfortable. And so yeah, I just have some stuff to sit with, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that it's there.
Thank you for sharing that. It's insightful. It's
Yeah.
interesting as well. I'm gonna, now I feel sort of bad. I don't apply any sort of Dharma principles, not consciously to my job itself, right? Maybe I do in my connections with. Never mind.
I
That's
bet
not
you
true.
do. I
That's
bet
not
you
true.
do.
That's not
Yeah.
true. I was even so I work in the auction industry, right? I do software stuff, but I work in the auction industry, and literally at the top of my inbox is a thought that I had about blogging. It's called like the mindful auctioneer or the Buddhist auctioneer or something like that, trying to apply Dharma to this particular profession.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
You're
all
doing
right,
it.
all
You're
right.
That's so funny. Yeah. So maybe that's a lesson too, is that, we need to be kind to ourselves and recognize that we are actually, I think, most of the time doing the best that we can with, like, the resources and
Yeah,
skills that we've developed so far. And we're going
man,
to continue to
yeah.
develop them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I'm like, I don't know about, I'm proud of you for being in that job, because I think it's amazing. Like, who the hell would do that, right? Like, it's hard work, and it's helping people, like most like the people who need the most help, right? And you're there, you're like in the thick of it, right? That's amazing. You're like an angel or something, and then you're having all these thoughts. It blows me away. It's amazing.
Oh. That is encouraging, and I appreciate you. Yeah. Oh, Dharma friends.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Well, hey, we've spent some good time talking about our weeks, but I think it's really important and topical to what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah.
Um, and so let's get into it. Joyous effort,
Mm.
right effort.
What's that mean to you, Jack? What's joyous effort?
Joyous, it's something that is a challenge for me. I have sometimes a lot of resistance getting on the cushion. I do it, but I feel, I guess, a little bit just like aggravated. And my energy sometimes is just so all over the place. Like, I'm really an excited type person. I'm in, I've got a lot on my mind, and a lot that I like thinking about, and a lot that I don't like thinking about, but that I do.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Right.
you know,
Mm,
and so it's like, I feel like when I sit down, sometimes I'm just like, ugh, it just feels like a brick. Like my whole
mm,
body is like cement. My mind is just sludge, and it's all just heavy, thick,
mm.
obnoxious sludge. And so that doesn't feel joyous.
No.
That doesn't feel joyous at all. Um, but I think joyous effort is, for me, knowing that that is going to happen, or is maybe likely to happen, and just showing up and saying, I'm happy to be here regardless. All
Yeah.
right, let's
Yeah.
do
Well,
it.
and then I mean, I can't help but imagine that that it's noticeable, the you're noticing what it's like before, you're noticing the resistance and what's coming up before you get on the cushion. Then you're on the cushion and you got all this stuff going on. Then it's ending and it's over. I can't, there must be, there has to be a settling, right? So there must be a noticing of the difference between pre-meditation and post-meditation. Yeah.
Some, yeah, I would say most of the time. But sometimes shamatha for me is just a drag,
Yeah.
beginning to end.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's not to deter anyone. I think that just shows that I have a lot of work to do, and actually that I'm hitting my work.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens is that when I started meditation, and I think when a lot of people start meditation, it feels wonderful.
Yeah.
It's like exciting. The energy is there. You want to show up to it because you see like ways that you're changing and developing. Um, and that feels really good. And as you get further and further along in the practice, as I've gotten further along, I've noticed that it's like it's gotten harder, but I don't think that that means that I've taken steps back. I think that means that I've met myself. I've
Yeah.
met whatever my ego is that is really blocking, my goals towards, my bodhicitta aim. And so I'm seeing it, and I think, it was all there before, right? But it's that metaphor that Lama talks about a lot, where we're in a dark room, and meditation is like slowly pushing up the dimmer light, where things just start getting brighter in the
Mm.
room, and you notice, oh my God, there's a dead body.
Oh dear. Oh my gosh. I know. Oh, the number of times that I've begged to turn off the light and go back to sleep.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I really, I strongly, like encourage people, like, don't stop, especially if you have a teacher, right? Because your teacher is going to be able to like show you what's going on. But when you hit that like brick wall, like just keep going, just keep showing
Yeah.
up. And I think that's what right effort really is. And maybe the joy sometimes isn't there for me, but there are times where it's like overwhelming joy, and it just like comes on suddenly, or even subtly too,
Yeah.
where like there's time, and I'll know that it's going to be a challenging practice, but it's kind of like, oh, this is my routine, this is what I do,
Yeah.
this is just what I do and who I am. And so there's like this kind of subtle joy that can happen in that too. um
For
what's that
sure.
that zen line, before enlightenment, carry water, chop wood; after enlightenment, carry water, chop wood. So
Yeah.
it's like, life isn't easy, and enlightenment is not going to make life easier. We still have to do the same things,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Mm-hmm.
just keep going.
Yeah. Uh, it reminds me. It reminded me of a couple of things, but mainly one of the things that popped up when you were talking about this is, that there's that initial relief that you feel, that you mentioned, and it reminded me of, I was at a recovery meeting the other day, and somebody was talking about how, like, like in samsara, you're always pursuing these pleasures that are like stopgaps. They don't last very long. They're not very fulfilling. They end up harming us and others, and that's the only way to sort of get any kind of happiness, right? It's not joy, but there's the only type of happiness that most of us have ever known in life are these sort of temporary samsaric pleasures, and that the contrast to that is the real joy of coming to be fully alive and awake and aware of yourself, right, as you are, like everything, and that there is that initial sort of relief, like, oh, okay, so I'm no longer hurting myself and others with these habits or patterns or whatever, and that feels like really amazing, right? That's a high. It's a high. You're literally, it feels really amazing.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about joyful effort, because it's like you just said, it's not going to be like that forever, right? At some point you dive off the diving board, and yeah, you're flying in the air for a minute, and that's hella fun, right? But then you're going to hit the water, and hopefully you hit it right.
Yeah.
and that there's a real deep, the person that was talking at the recovery meeting, it was really beautiful. They were talking about like just this deep heartfelt appreciation for their life way down the road, like after that initial, like, yeah. And they were talking about that state, like what you're in, like where you're like, no, this is just what I do. And yeah, there I am. Look at that. Anxious, neurotic me. Okay. All right. Yeah. Look at that. You're not hurting yourself or anything. You're not, you're not causing more problems. You're not, nothing like that. And I think there's like there's got to be like this deep sort of like, it's like it's like pride, it's like a little like, yeah, I did that. I'm doing this. I'm figuring out who I am and how to be in this world, right? And to turn around and be able to have a life that's worth living, that's amazing, right? It's not always going to be happy. It's not always going to be high. And I think that there's, even in like really some pretty what appear to be sad or morbid situations, I think that when we can apply the Dharma, we can find that there's joy there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, one antidote that really helps me when I'm just feeling that kind of like sludge reaction to my practice, and it's, I think, related to what you're talking about. That person said where okay, I'm seeing myself, and that's okay. Here I am, and I'm going to move from there. It's just reminding myself of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma. And one of them is it's the last one, and it's basically like, samsara is suffering, and so focusing on getting what I want, right, like getting worldly happiness, or avoiding what I don't want, is just keeping us on the hamster wheel, and it's exhausting and stressful. And so actually turning our mind to our good qualities and how we're developing, that's actually a really beautiful practice, because it helps us see that, like, okay, I'm growing, I'm changing, and it's because of Dharma and my training, and applying myself in that training. And so being able to see that, like, when hard times come or resistance comes, that yeah, that it's kind of like giving myself a little reminder, like, hey, no, you've been doing this, and it's okay that you're in a rough patch, because that's actually the path.
Yeah.
And samsara feels shitty sometimes.
Sometimes.
I know, all, yeah. If you're really thinking about it all the time, then it is all the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And we're like, there's all these like the whole process of trying to make it okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy making,
It
right?
is.
That's
Yeah.
there's no joy in that. There just can't be, like where something is so inherently broken or, like not going to work out, like so
Yeah.
hopeless, right? Like it can't. When you look at samsara and you really contemplate it, it's never going to, it can't. It literally cannot work out, right? It's like fool's gold. It's never, it just can't become the real thing ever.
We
Yeah.
can't create our perfect samsara.
I've tried.
Oh, me too. I'm
Yeah.
still trying,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, true.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Yeah, tell me a little bit about where your practice gets a little bit rough, or when you need to bring in some joy.
I don't know that I can bring in joy. I think it happens.
Yeah.
It's, like I become aware of it when it's present. The challenges in my practice are primarily related to, well, it's the same old thing, right? The five hindrances. It's always some type of a blend of those, like the sensory desire, right? Or doubt is a big one.
Same.
I think that at least right now, like I'm still kind of high off the refuge ceremony and all of that. I feel very much, I was really proud and happy with myself because I had a lot of doubt, even up, if even up to the ceremony, right? Like where I was like, I can't, I don't even know. Like there's this perfectionism streak, right? I'm not going to be able to do it perfectly. And if I can't do it perfectly, I shouldn't be doing it at all. And all kinds of just stuff. And then I just thought, I realized, I was like, no, I really just want to do this. And I'm just going to bring all that doubt with me, you
Yeah.
know? I'm just going to bring it, like whatever. It can come along for the ride. It doesn't have to stop me. And if it ends up, making it so that if it turns out to be some kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, then so be it. Right? I'll meditate. I'll bring that to my meditation. Right? Like that's okay. And but doubt, I'd say, has been a big part, and not. It's like partially it's doubt in Buddha Dharma, like there was that sort of kind of like, oh, is it really, I mean, like I can see how it works and in my own life, and I see it in working in others. I see all of this, but like, really, can it really be that? Is it, there's that kind of like, am I going down some other, some path here that I just don't see as foolish, like I've done throughout the rest of my life. But that's kind of subsided a bit. It's more sort of like self-doubt, like that I'm not going to be able to do this kind of thing. So that's like a part of it. And then the other challenge that I have, that's one of the, five hindrances is sort of like like, so, you're sort of a bit on the high energy. I'd say probably when it's negative, it's probably anxiety, right? And I'm a bit more on the other end of the spectrum. So I'm more like a depressive, type of, more like apathy, you know? I become sort of apathetic where I'm just like, who gives a shit? Okay, yeah, samsara sucks, but that's all we got here, like that's just how it is. And, like, why bother? Like like the two, it goes hand in hand with that doubt. There's all these like mind tricks going on trying to sort of prevent me,
Yeah.
from going down this road. So I feel like, like that, those have been particularly difficult for me. And I think that that's true in all aspects of my training, meditation, studying, all application, all of it. So yeah, I think that those have been the sort of primary things that are like forms of resistance for me. And part of it, like one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that so a huge part of like the refuge thing, the reason why I didn't take refuge for so long had to do with the fact that there's this fifth precept that you have to avoid. You're supposed to avoid alcohol and intoxication.
Right.
And I love so that's another one of the five hindrances, right? Is sensory desire,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so like this attachment to samsaric objects, if you will, right? And so I had this like it was a block. It was just this block that was like, you've never been able to survive in this world without that, right? Like you've never done it, not for not for very long periods of time, certainly not for a lifetime. And so there was this like, oh, I'm not going to be able to, and I need to do it right, and I'm going to have to do it perfectly. And it was really helpful to bring that to Lama, because I remember one time I went to him, and I think I may have told you this story. I won't repeat the whole thing. Say, I don't want to bore you, but I went in and I was like, I was sort of like, I'd made a decision. I went in and I said, Lama, I'm not meditating anymore. Done. I'm over it. Not going to meditate anymore, because why should I bother, right? Why should I bother with any of this stuff if I can't actually do it?
Yeah.
Right? If I can't do all five precepts, right? If I can't actually carry this thing out, the hell am I doing?
Mm.
And he was just like, wow, that's just a perfectionist trap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and then he told me very gently, like he said, I kind of wish that maybe they didn't call them vows, like it's more like aspirations, like really strong aspiration, right? Like you really want it to be that way.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that it's gonna be that way. Right?
Right.
And that was really helpful to me, because it took the edge off and then he just said, look, his advice was just keep practicing. Just don't just keep going. Don't stop, right? And that advice was the right advice, because it's actually, one of the antidotes to doubt, for example, is just practice more.
Yeah.
Right? Just because because it's the same as with everything else. So I just recently picked up juggling.
Nice.
And yeah, so for 45 years, my mind has said I can't juggle. I don't know how to juggle. Like every time I've ever tried to juggle, I couldn't juggle, and I like nothing. And lo and behold, after some weird twist of fate involving my youngest daughter and some lemons, I now know how to juggle.
That's awesome.
Right? And it came with some practice. I didn't have to practice very long. At first, I could juggle, 3 balls just a little bit, but now I could keep it going for a while, right? And so my confidence in my ability to juggle has increased with the actual practice of doing it again and again.
Right.
And meditation and all of this stuff is exactly the same. Like I won't have so much doubt when I know I've done it. I've been there. I've been doing it, right? I can follow your lead, right? Just do it. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to just keep doing it, right? I can do what Lama's saying, which is what you're saying you're doing, which is keep going. Just don't stop. Keep going, right? We're climbing this mountain, and it gets treacherous. Yeah, the path is windy. Yeah, avalanches, all kinds of stuff happen. Sure, that's life. And would you rather do that fully aware and as awake as you can possibly be to it, with as much clarity as possible, or you want to do it with blindfold on? You want to do it in a dark, in the darkness, right? And it just like sort of when you put it that way, you're like, oh, duh, right? Of course. Like if I have to do it. We don't have a choice, right? We have to move forward, right? We have to apply our effort somehow. So why not do it in the way that sort of just logically makes sense, right? Like, of course, we'd want to do it in the light and rather than in the dark. And actually, I just said something that reminded me of something I saw the other day on YouTube. This is the funniest thing. So there's this teacher named Sem Rinpoche. He's a younger teacher. And he's, he has a slightly different, he has a more sort of like a Western way of talking and stuff. But it was funny. He had this talk and he starts off, he just says, it takes a lot of effort to remain a loser. Right? And I was sort of a little bit offended at first, because he was like, you're all losers, right? Like that's just how it is. And it takes a lot of effort. And the reason why you think about effort is because, you don't realize when you're in ignorance, you don't realize how much effort you're putting into that loser sort of state of being.
Mm.
So, and he gave a number of different examples of it, where essentially, like somebody who says, well, I can't accomplish anything. I'm never going to do anything. And so I'm just going to sit here and I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything, right? That sounds like no effort at all. I'm not going to do anything. But if you just sit there and you watch while everybody else is doing their thing and growing and enjoying life or not, whatever's happening, it takes a lot of effort to be okay with that, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody else is doing stuff, but I'm not doing anything. Well, that requires effort too. So no matter what, we're putting out effort. And we can't escape, right? We have to continue to do it. Why not do it in a way that, is at least somewhat hopeful, right?
Yeah.
Like when we do it in this samsaric way, it's never gonna work, right? So why are we I don't want to be a loser, right? Not anymore, right? I wanted to, I guess, for a while. I guess that's why I was doing it, but I don't want to do that,
Yeah.
right? Like with this precious life, this, and that's one of the things that this, one of the thoughts that turn the mind away from
That's a
samsara.
powerful one.
It really is powerful. And it's not just like, oh, I'm alive and I'm human, right? And no, it's actually, it's extraordinary because I not only am I a human being, I'm a human being who has all my faculties.
Right.
I have material and other resources. I have all these sort of good conditions just from a sort of even a worldly sort of position.
Right.
In addition to that, here I have come in touch with Dharma,
Yeah.
right?
I know. It's incredible.
I have an amazing teacher, right? And I like, wow, that's a golden opportunity, right?
Huge. It's huge. Yeah, I was talking about that with my partner this weekend, where I was, trying to get across, like, this doesn't happen like this is not a common experience.
No.
For one, in just the general human experience. So to be a Buddhist, especially in the West, is not a common experience, even though it's growing. But then to be a Buddhist in the West with a teacher who will meet with you on an individual one-on-one level, who also knows you, who can speak to our cultural milieu, and really make it so that we can understand from our perspective, that is more precious than any material wealth I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
It, it brings tears to my eyes, right? Because
me too. I was gonna say, I backed away from the camera because I was like, oh.
Yeah. it just it really hit home when I was talking about it with Eric, because it was just like, I don't know if I can get across how deeply grateful I am. And also that I created the merit in past lives and this life to get to this point where I have that. And so that's a lot of merit, right? To have that unique and precious an opportunity. And so oh my God, I can't squander it.
Right.
No, I really gotta do this.
Well, yeah. And not only that, but you don't have a lot of time.
No.
Right? You don't have a lot of time. One of the
lives are impermanent.
Right. So our, Tibetan Buddhism is often referred to as Vajrayana, right? Diamond thunderbolt, right? And the idea that it is actually possible to gain enlightenment in a single lifetime, but we got to get after it, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not guaranteed. We're not guaranteed. Even so, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take time and effort, right? It's going to joyful effort. It's going to require that. And so if we don't want it to take multiple lifetimes, and then we gotta seize this opportunity, as you said, right now, while we have it, right? Because we don't know what's gonna happen, how long we're gonna be here. And it'd be best, while we have this teacher, while we have this particularly precious birth, let's get after it, let's use it now.
Yeah. Meditate like your hair's on fire, right?
Ah, yeah, meditate like your hair's on fire. Right. I don't,
Yeah, oh, it's still there. It's still
no,
there.
no, there's no hair. It's bald. So Llama cut off just a tiny. I grew it. I grew it as long as I
Yeah.
could. He took a tiny bit, and he said, I don't know if he said it loud enough for everybody to hear or not, but he did say, he said, well, here I'm cutting off samsara, right? And,
Yeah.
and then I went home and finished the job. I did want to. I have, you and I are both Shanti Deva fans, right?
Yes, we are.
We are,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
so I was, before I took refuge, I was like, I think maybe like a week or two before, I was like, man, how do I really like put in effort? I'm not doing it. I tended towards this lazy, sort of depressive, apathetic sort of thing, and that doubt and all that kind of stuff. Um, and so it was the funniest thing. Was sitting in meditation, and there was just this book,
Yeah.
The Way of the Bodhisattva.
Wow.
It was just sitting next to me, and so like I picked it up and I looked at the chapters, and there's a whole chapter 7, that is all about right effort, and it's oh my gosh, it's got so many little notes in there, like, oh yeah, that, right? So I got like a million good quotes, and I was hoping that maybe I could share a few.
Please do. I'm always ready for Shanti Deva.
Okay, cool. So the first one is the one that I found most helpful. I'll read it first, and I'll tell you how I thought it was so helpful. It says, "When I'm beleaguered by defilements, I will stand and face them in 1,000 ways. I'll not surrender to the host of the afflictions, but like a lion, I will stand amid a crowd of foxes." And so like the visual image, of a lion amid a bunch of foxes, right? So you can kind of picture, like, I actually went off and watched some hyena and lion videos after I read that.
Yeah.
And it really was I'm not joking. Like, it was inspirational. I know hyenas are not, they're a little bit fiercer than foxes, right?
Yeah.
Even so, a lion with hyenas, right? Like, it can do, it can stand its ground. And if you imagine a lion, like, sure, a bunch of foxes, maybe they could be threatening or something. But even if you had 100 foxes or 1,000 foxes, they do nothing with a lion. Lion would like to, yeah, maybe it would get nipped or something. Sure, right. But will it destroy those foxes? You bet it. It will not be destroyed by them. That's for damn sure. Right. So I loved it. The visual, like, it put me in this, like, I love that part of it. I got visually, like, I was like, roar, like, no, you damn foxes, get out of here.
Well, and
Okay,
that's, I mean, I love it because, there's so many, in our everyday life and kind of conventional world, there's so many things that, on the surface feel very scary or like intimidating or make us vulnerable, but ultimately they have no permanence and they have no real lasting damage to us unless we, react in turn in some sort of way. We are the gatekeepers of our own, karma. And so we decide through our choices and how we respond to those foxes of like the everyday challenges, what happens next. And so I love that it's like, okay, sure, like there's a whole host of foxes or afflictions or whatever things that I'm trying to like get away from or but actually with the Dharma, I'm a lion.
that's right.
There's nothing to fear. There's nothing
No,
to fear, ultimately.
no,
Yeah.
exactly. And that if you really are the lion amid all those foxes, you don't even have to attack them. You just have to stand your ground and be the lion, right? And those foxes will self-liberate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
They'll skitter away.
they're empty. They're empty anyway, right?
Yeah.
They're illusory.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Love
right.
it.
Can I do one more?
Please,
It's
yeah.
like there are like two more that kind of go together. It has to do, a lot of times we talk about dharma as being like medicine,
Mhm.
right? And so I love this part. It says, the hardships suffered on the path to Buddhahood are limited in their extent and likened to the pain of an incision made to cure the harms of inward ills. And then there's a slightly different quote related to it. To destroy a vast amount of pain, we should be patient with our little hurts, right? So what the reason that resonated so much with me is because all that stuff, all the obstacles, oh, I can't because of this, or I can't because of that fox or whatever. There's all this stuff that's sort of in my way or whatever, like it, samsara, my samsaric life was incredibly painful. It hurt on all
Right,
levels,
right.
physical and mental, emotional, every aspect of my being was in pain, was hurting, right? As a result of that. And I did all kinds of things. My ignorance is powerful. And so I could sometimes, ignore it.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it'd come crashing through. And boy, when it did, was it even worse, right? It was
Mhm.
terrible. And so by comparison to the sort of awfulness of this samsaric existence, the the little bit of, I mean, like, what is it? We have to sit quietly. Okay. Okay, that's hard. Oh, because okay, yeah, maybe it's a little discomfort, or maybe it hurts or something. I don't know, a little bit, but it's not terrible, right? It's certainly, I mean, seriously, sitting and meditating is a lot better than a hangover.
Oh my God. Yes.
Like a
Yeah.
hangover for me, a real bad hangover for me might last 2 days.
Hmm.
It's miserable 2 days. It's terrible,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm just talking about maybe meditating for like 20, 30 minutes.
Right.
Right? Like, and it's not even, doesn't even hurt. It's pretty
Yeah.
easy to do,
Yeah.
right? And then similarly, the rest of the practice, everything else that's related to this path, it's not painful. The only so what, like you were kind of alluding to, I think, or what you said was that, like, those things that are painful on the path, they are illusory as well. They are mind generated. Those are
Mhm.
foxes as well, right? Like the same kind of thing. They're not. It's not real pain. It's not real suffering. It's not any of that. It's our egos, our narcissistic sort of selves, maybe are uncomfortable with it, but that's the whole fucking point,
Right.
right? That's the
Right.
whole. That's the. I'm sorry about the language, but like, right? That's the whole point, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Is this sort of like insulting that narcissistic self-centered self. So of
Right.
course it's going to be uncomfortable. Of course it's going to be uncomfortable. You're not that uncomfortable. Like that,
Yeah.
it's not real. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Most definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like seeing the truth of what we're dealing with,
Yeah.
and refusing um to be held captive by that tyrant of the self, and yeah, all the things that come with defending a self, and how exhausting and just how
Ugh.
much torture it is to keep trying to defend that, or trying to get what I think is going to make me happy. It's just horrendous.
You know what I think is neat about the medicine analogy is that it sort of gets to what you said at the outset, which is that so there is this, when we've had a terrible condition that's caused us a lot of pain, and then we take some medicine and it makes the pain go away. The relief feels quite, we're overjoyed at the relief from that pain.
Yeah.
But if we can make it, if we've had a lifetime of that pain and we take some medicine, we cure it, and then it's gone for a while, right? We keep taking the medicine or whatever, but it's does the rest of this, the ailment doesn't return. Well, then that's just sort of like you're like back to sort of like a baseline. Like then well, you still have to pay the bills, you still have to go to work, you still have to, well, but at least you don't have that pain and suffering anymore, right? So
Yeah.
at the very least, life is better in that sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that's a great point about that we're helping ourselves come back to a functional self with the precepts, is that, yeah, we're taking the medicine of those precepts or and the Dharma, and we're still in this life. We're still in this body. We're still in, whatever jobs or whatnot. And so I think that's where it's really actually very crucial to have joy, is because it can kind of feel a little flat, I think,
Yeah.
sometimes, where it's like, oh, my like drama isn't here anymore, or it's a lot less, and so like, what is life now when I don't have that kind of roller coaster that I used to be on? And so I think the joy is starting to come for me and seeing like, wow, what's next? Like, and I'm kind of living just like my everyday life with very little drama. And it's nice.
Amazing, right?
It's amazing. And so, and I think like now we're like at this baseline of like, okay, I don't have to deal with all of that torture BS. It still comes and goes, but now I can really go deep, and I can start to learn like, okay, what actually is this? What actually am I? And what does it mean to become a Buddha? What does it mean to be enlightened?
Yeah.
And so that's such a joy, is knowing that like, okay, I'm setting down like the very gross suffering that I've put myself through. I'm setting that down. I'm no longer going to let myself go into that craziness. I'm doing my best to keep myself out of there. And yeah, that's the way forward. That's the way through.
Exactly. And then think about it, like how much better of a position you're in now than you ever were in the past to help people, for example, the involuntary patients, right, that you're working with.
Yeah.
But what do you call it? Involuntary what?
Involuntary treatment. Yeah. Yeah.
Involuntary treatment, right? Like yeah, I mean, it truly is the Bodhisattva path, right? Like first you heal yourself, or not even first, you're doing it at the same time. You're healing yourself and you're healing others at the same time. And you, I'm not talking about you specifically, but I imagine it's probably true for you, is that you're in a much better position to help and heal other people when you're on this path and when you're doing your practice, right? Or doing your training, and then you can apply it in practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my heart is more open to both myself and others. And yeah, it's that the letting. I think another person who took refuge with you said it really well when Lama asked her, do you know what you're doing?
Yeah.
And she said something to the effect of, I'm putting down the crazy. Like I'm not going to go there anymore. I'm ready. you know I thought that was really beautiful.
Oh, can I say one more thing? Okay,
Please. Yeah.
about the refuge thing, you just
Yeah.
reminded me of it. It's hilarious. It's funny. So there was a 12-year-old boy, right, who took
Yes.
refuge with us, and like I did notice I had some thoughts around that. Sort of like, oh well, what's young, whatever. There's some sort of like, like it's interesting, right? And then what was funny is that when Lama asked him, do you know what you're doing? His response was incredibly. It was this 12-year-old. Yeah, you're right. I'm seeking enlightenment for the betterment of all beings. It was like this, like outcry, like super positive. And what's fascinating about that is how many times Jac's voice has echoed in my mind, right? When I've like at the end of my meditation, right? I tell you this morning, right? I was meditating, and at the end, dedicating merit, and I channeled Jac in my meditation,
Uh-huh.
and I had this everybody, right? And it felt good. It felt really, really good. So I highly
Nice.
recommend it. If you next time you do a dedication of merit, try to do it the way Jac does it, and notice how good that is.
Yeah.
It was
And
amazing. It was
that
very inspirational.
inspirational, filled with joy,
So
you know, just like breaking through. I love it.
love it. Love it. Me too.
All right, my friend. Well, we are here at the end, amazingly. I am looking forward to seeing you again next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for being my partner in crime, Jack.
Yeah, same for you. Yeah, we're doing it. Keep going.
Yeah.
All right, take care, everybody.
Bye, Jack. Take care,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you.